Today we're tackling an important question. What is the difference between an expat and an immigrant? This has sparked many debates, it's confused travelers, and even ruffled some feathers. Everybody is aware of both terms. When you think an expat, maybe you think someone sipping wine in Tuscany. When you think an immigrant, maybe you think someone starting fresh in a new country. But are they really that different, or is it just a matter of perspective? In this video, we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty, the definitions, the history, the vibes that they carry, and why these labels matter in today's globalized world. This isn't just about words, it's about identity, privilege, and how we see people crossing borders. So let's jump in. Let's start with the basics. Start with the dictionary definition. So the term expat comes from the Latin ex, meaning out of, and patria, meaning homeland. So an expatriate is someone living outside of their homeland, outside their native country. Simple enough. Immigrant, meanwhile, comes from in and migrare, meaning to move into. So someone that's moving into a new country, usually to settle there. On paper, they sound pretty similar, right? Both are describing people leaving one place for another. But in real life, these words carry totally different flavors. An expat is often seen as someone who's abroad temporarily or semi-permanently, maybe for a job, a lifestyle change, or an adventure. They might keep their identity tied to their homeland, like an American working in Tokyo who plans to return to the US someday. An immigrant, though, is usually framed as someone planting roots. Think a Mexican family moving to Canada, aiming to build a permanent life, maybe even become citizens of Canada. But here's the kicker. These definitions aren't set in stone. They shift based on context, culture, and even who's doing the labeling. So let's break it down further. Talk about intent and time frame. So one big difference people point to is intent. Expats are often seen as choosing to live abroad with an expiration date in mind. Picture, a British engineer sent to Qatar for a 3-year contract. She's got a cushy expat package, a villa, and a ticket home when it's over. She might learn some Arabic to get by, but she's not necessarily aiming to become Qatari. Immigrants, on the other hand, are typically viewed as in it for the long haul. Maybe, a Filipino nurse moves to Australia, gets permanent residency, and raises kids who grow up Aussie. The goal isn't just to live there, it's to belong there. But here's where it gets blurry. What if the British engineer falls in love with Qatar and stays for 20 years? Is she still an expat? Or what if the Filipino nurse plans to return to the Philippines someday but never does? Intent can change and time frames can stretch. So while intent is a factor, perhaps it's not the whole story. So let's rewind a bit because history shaped these terms big time. Expatriate used to mean something heavier, like someone forced out of their country. Think like a political exile or writers like Ernest Hemingway fleeing to Paris in the 1920s. Back then, it had this artsy, rebellious vibe. Expats were the cool outsiders. Over time, though, it morphed. By the mid-20th century, it started linking to professionals sent abroad. Think American oil workers in Saudi Arabia or French diplomats in Africa. It became tied to choice, to privilege, temporary stays, often with a whiff of glamour. Immigrant, though, its roots are much humbler. You think Ellis Island in the early 1900s, millions arriving in the US with suitcases and dreams, ready to work hard and assimilate. It's a word tied to permanence, struggle, and building something new, often without the luxury of a safety net. So the vibe matters. calling someone an expat, and it might conjure an image of a jet setter. Call them an immigrant, and it might suggest grit and sacrifice. But those vibes, they're not always fair or accurate. So here's where it gets spicy. Maybe it's a double standard. Some say expat versus immigrant isn't just about intent or history, it's about who gets the label. So picture this, a Canadian marketing exec moves to Singapore for work. He's called an expat. Now, a Bangladeshi construction worker moves to Singapore too, planning to stay long term. He's called an immigrant. Same city, similar goals, different tags. Why? Well, critics argue it's a double standard tied to wealth, nationality, right? Westerners moving to Asia, Africa, or the Middle East are often expats, even if they settle permanently. But people from poorer countries moving to the West, they're usually immigrants, even if they're just there for a few years. Take Dubai as an example. It's packed with Western expats, engineers, teachers, bankers, living in shiny compounds. But the city's also built by South Asian workers who outnumber everybody else. They're rarely called expats, though. They're migrant workers, quote unquote, even if they stay for decades. Same deal in Europe. A Brit in Spain is an expat. A Turk in Germany is an immigrant. This isn't just semantics. It also reflects sort of the power dynamics. Expat often implies privilege, a passport with clout, a job with perks, the option to leave. Immigrant carries a sense of necessity, fewer choices, more hurdles. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some say it's purely about intent, not bias. What do you think? And we'll circle back to that. So a couple more real-world examples. Here's one. Meet Sarah. She's an American graphic designer who moved to Berlin for a startup job. She's been there 5 years, speaks decent German, but still calls the US home. She's an expat, temporary vibes, strong ties back home. Now meet Juan, who left Colombia for New Zealand a decade ago. He's a citizen now, owns a house, and his kids have Kiwi accents. He's an immigrant, fully in. But what about Priya? She's Indian, moved to London for a bank job, has indefinite leave to remain. She might stay forever or not. Colleagues call her an expat. Her neighbors call her an immigrant. Same person, different lenses. Then there's the retiree crowd. Brits flock to Spain's Costa del Sol, are dubbed expats, sipping tea in British enclaves. But Romanians moving to Spain for factory jobs, those are immigrants. Both groups might stay forever, but the labels stick to the stereotypes. So why does this matter? Why care about this? Well, other than the fact that I hear about it on Twitter all the time, it's because these words shape how we see people and ourselves. If you're dreaming of moving abroad, will you call yourself an expat or an immigrant? Does it change how you feel about it? Labels carry baggage, pride, judgment, belonging, or exclusion. They also spark bigger questions. In a world where remote work and globalization blurs borders, are these terms outdated? Should we just call everyone, global citizens? Or do they still capture something real about intent, privilege, and identity? Today, expats and immigrants alike are reshaping cities. Think London's diversity or Bangkok's expat hubs. They bring skills, culture, and debates about who, quote unquote, belongs. So understanding the difference isn't just wordplay, it's a window into our connected, messy world. And that's the deep dive on expat versus immigrant. From history to privilege to real world quirks, it's a lot to chew on. What's your take? Do you see a clear line between them? Or do you see the lines kind of blurred? Have you ever been labeled one or the other? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd be really curious to hear what you guys think as well. And if you enjoyed this, smash the like button, share it with a friend, subscribe for more videos about living abroad, second passports, Latin America, all that good stuff. And we'll see you in the next video.